This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined today by Chateau Belle-Vue's Jill Boutros. How are you today, Jill?
Good morning. Doing well so far. Thanks, Jamie.
Now, we are talking about Chateau Belle-Vue. You are located in Bhamdoun, Mount Lebanon, in the country of Lebanon. Please tell us a little bit about what you do at Chateau Belle-Vue.
Yeah, so we are growing wines and producing in a small village in the mountains of Lebanon, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea and the city of Beirut. And Bellevue is the name because obviously at 1,250 meters of altitude, we have beautiful perspective toward the sea and toward the snowy mountains of Lebanon in the north. We moved to Bellevue, to Bhamdoun, about 20 something years ago, back in 1999,
Right.
with our four children, decided to grow children and vines basically side by side on the mountainside in a land in a village which was historically known for viticulture. So in planting the noble grapes, we were not doing anything new or revolutionary necessarily. We were merely taking historic vineyards and transforming them into wine growing terroir.
Now, your husband's family have quite a history in Bhamdoun, do they not?
Correct. So the village was actually the site of fairly significant discord and disruption during the Lebanese Civil War. I assume this is what you're getting at, but in the early 1980s, there was actual conflict in the village with, various regional armies coming together, and the conflagration resulted in 450 of the villagers being killed. The people who remained were able to leave on foot, so they walked down to the bottom of our valley with whatever they could carry. Walked along the riverbed to Beirut for the most part, put their kids in school, got new jobs, created lives. And probably most significantly, they started to worship in different churches. So this is when the social fabric of the village fell apart. Instead of everyone coming together for everything from birth through death, they were all of a sudden not a community anymore. And so in moving to Bhamdoun back in 1999, Naji and I had the idea that we would somehow create some momentum to drag the community back together. And we decided to do that through agriculture because that was what was traditionally done in the area.
Now, you mentioned the history of viticulture there, but Bhamdoun was also known as a kind of, with it being 20 minutes away from Beirut, it was known as being quite the place for tourism, and people had lovely holiday homes there and the like.
Absolutely. So that was the dual nature of Bhamdoun. Obviously, with grapes, they had always done it because it was the perfect little closed valley that had very low humidity, moderate temperatures, cool evenings, etc. Everything conducive to growing great fruit. But at the same time, people would come up to Bhamdoun because of that same low humidity, moderate temperatures, etc. Yes. And so part of the history of the village is that anyone with sort of pulmonary conditions would often come up.
Yes,
to recover. It was like a cure sort of place. And later in the 1950s and 60s and early 70s, I would say that it became a tourism spot for many of the Gulf Arabs who didn't want to spend a lot of their time, in 45-degree weather during the summer. So they would come to Bhamdoun and locate themselves for a month or 2 months and have, beautiful summer weather. Every day is 85 and sunny in Bhamdoun. I'm speaking in the American 85 and sunny.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Now, what with that intense conflict happening in the area, what kind of state were the vineyards in when you arrived in 1999?
Yeah, that was an issue. So the way we started, Jamie, we had 3 plots of land that belonged to the family that we planted in April of 2000. And those, that was something that we just were beginning. We didn't know exactly the direction that things were going to go, but immediately after that same summer, people started coming to us to say, my grandfather's land is just sitting there. Why don't you plant it? And so we began to grow that way. But what we found as we were, we would work all the land from beginning to end, including fixing the stone walls, these terrace walls that had been there for hundreds of years that were put in place in order to tame the mountainside for agriculture. We would fix the stone walls, we would deep plow going down a meter or so into the soil. Very frequently we would come up, we would find, some of the heritage grapes that were still growing but had gone wild. Those we were able to sort of transplant, and we have a living museum of the Bhamdoun grapes, which I believe has 35 or 40 different varietals of table grapes, because that's what they used to do.
Right.
But I think because the valley had gone so long, the people had left, there was a period of 10 or 12 or maybe a bit more years where it wasn't possible to come up to the village because it was occupied by Syrian army. So there were checkposts, you weren't allowed to go to your home. But by the sort of mid-90s, that all changed, shifted, and opened up, and people started going back. But they found that the mountainside, of course, untended, it was prone to wildfires, goat herders coming through. There was pretty significant devastation. Even, part of our project is olives. We have maybe 400 to 500 olive trees in our property, and many of the olive trees were cut at the base. And so we found, new growth, and we've been planting more trees, obviously planting vines. We've got about 24 hectares under vine at the moment, which is 60 acres or so. And all the olive trees, figs, etc. I mean, you can grow anything in Lebanon. That is just a given. The climate, it's very, very generous when you have a relationship with the land. And we, haven't come up against any significant sort of challenges in terms of the farming. The challenges have been other types, more related to people or sort of distribution of land between agriculture and development.
I understand. One of my normal questions is, what are the greatest challenges towards grape growing and winemaking in any particular region? But you're saying that's more to do with perhaps politics and people than it is external, say, climatic influences or anything like that.
Sure. I would say, it's fair to say that we obviously trial and error learned a lot, but we also had the benefit of truly figuratively standing on the shoulders of all the farmers who had done grapes in this valley before. So there were a lot of things, when you pay attention to the old wisdom, you've automatically set yourself up for a more success. And there were things that we listened to and things that we didn't. Some things that we probably learned and could have done better if we had paid better attention. But I think generally we're pretty satisfied with the traditional farming, organic agriculture, the dry farming, which is a huge thing where we are because it doesn't rain in Lebanon from mid-April through usually late October or sometimes November. So there are a lot of things, a lot of ways where we needed to hit the ground running in order to produce. But again, starting off with a few thousand vines and just 3 separate vineyards, we're up to 100 and maybe 40 different plots of land now. They're not all contiguous, which is another thing. Yes. But we have managed to sort of spread ourselves around the valley, in and around the village. I would say mostly below the village. And we've been able to stop the development. Being so close to Beirut,
I see.
It's very tempting for, the municipality members to, I believe that they have a little bit more financial benefit from land transactions for development rather than agriculture. So that's been one of the challenges for sure. Just getting people on board with being organic because obviously we need our neighbors to grow organically as well.
Of course.
And yeah, and the municipality has come on board largely, but that was quite a lot of tension in the early years when we were trying to establish ourselves and keep the valley green. I mean, that was the point, was to get the Bhamdouni people to come back and live there again.